Is the zero waste movement racist? When we think of zero waste, why do we think of it as a privilege rather than a system that sustains existence of our relationship with Earth? Let's discuss. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe for more eco-educational videos and leave a comment if you love these videos as it continues to support the work I do in this space. Zero waste and environmental racism is a human rights issue. Communities are not created nor designed equally, and many BIPOC communities globally are the ones living nearby toxic facilities such as waste incinerators being one of them. Zero waste was created back in 2002 by the Zero Waste International Alliance, and this term was later peer-reviewed internationally in 2004 and accepted as a legitimate definition. Since then, Zero Waste International Alliance updated its definition back in 2018 to clarify and to define zero waste as the following: the conservation of all resources by the means of a responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning and with no discharges to the land, water, or air that threatens the environment or human health. Keynote: human health. The term itself was intended for businesses and communities to follow a guideline practices to ensure a sustainable future. However, the zero waste movement has often portrayed the consumer as a problem and encourages individuals to make immediate changes in their lifestyles. Corporations have contributed to environmental racism by flooding markets with plastics and working closely with markets such as the fossil fuel industries to create racial disparities. If we want to redesign a system where resources are ethically sourced and communities are ethically treated with respect, we must delve deeper than our individual behaviors and begin questioning the bigger picture. Are these companies and corporations killing us? My issue with the zero waste lifestyle movement is the lack of acknowledgement and contributions BIPOC communities have been practicing for decades. This is a form of erasure and disrespect in my opinion. Zero waste isn't new, right? The term itself wasn't coined by a white person. It has always been practiced by BIPOC communities throughout the world. Many of these communities practice regenerative, sustainable, and circular lifestyles that have had a minimal environmental impact. Take, for example, the Aztec people of Tenochtitlan. They were known for building and redesigning chinampas in their own cities. And chinampas, for those who don't know, were floating gardens where Aztecs were able to produce artificial land on fresh waters for their agricultural practices. And through this circular practice and design, they knew how to continue enriching their soils by disposing of organic waste and repeating the same nutrient cycle over and over again. They even developed an educational system where students, quote unquote, developed a resource-efficient culture that made it the best use of any available resources in order to survive, and these factors shaped their perspectives on natural resources. Many cultures throughout the world had unique relationships with their lands that allowed them to practice zero waste. Modern society often disconnects from this reality and the importance of historical implications. However, it is important to recognize that many communities of color still have these relationships and traditions in our own blood. For myself, I grew up low income living in Los Angeles and remember my parents instilling the values of sustainability as a form of survival since we didn't have much to grow up with. I was taught zero waste through a resourceful lens, and it was seen as unappealable or seen as a poor thing by many of the students at my school. And don't get me wrong, I'm really excited that zero waste is more popularized now because less people get teased about being resourceful. And today it seems that the digital spaces that repackage low-income lifestyles into aesthetic while believing to feel that they are the leaders of this movement is where it kind of gets into gray water, which I think it can be problematic again when you're not acknowledging our contributions to the zero waste movement. So how does the zero waste lifestyle movement come into this? Back in 2009, zero waster known as B. Johnson began her blog about living a sustainable lifestyle that sparked the curiosity of many people to look into the lifestyle she was living. In 2010, media began to cover this minimal, reduced lifestyle, and it soon became popularized throughout 2012 to now, which is known as zero waste. It was noted by several media outlets like Fox that mainly millennial white women were invested in living this lifestyle, and there was a lack of presence for males, which I think it's great that there's more women in this movement. While her contributions are helpful for many people throughout these days, I really wish the media did a good job in really highlighting diverse perspectives, especially Black and Indigenous people. And there's no such thing as zero waste leaders when you're not recognizing Indigenous wisdom in the leaders who have been creating these systems. How many male zero wasters do you actually know out there? I really think there's only less than 5, and of those 5, they're generally straight white men. And I guess me, if you consider me zero waste. A recent article written by Gris found that 55% of LGBTQ adults versus a certain percentage of straight adults were known to have more affinity to saving the planet, and knowing the fact that masculinity plays a huge role in the ways that straight men were attributing their work to the environment, calling it a gay thing to practice eco-friendly lifestyles. Since when was it a gay thing to exist? However, many people in the environmental movement have shared that zero waste can often be inaccessible, ableist, and a privilege for people. The modern zero waste movement has also had issues with diversity, where a majority of the people represented and highlighted in the movement are white, which we're not really including that many BIPOC environmental zero wasters in this conversation. So what are we saying about this to larger media and to the larger audience? Is that people like us don't practice it, that our existence and our survival aren't valid or aesthetic enough to be in these spaces? So what are the limitations of the zero waste movement? For so long, we have been told that zero waste and consumers have to reduce their waste in finding eco-conscious lifestyles to live. Meanwhile, corporations contribute to the slow murder of communities of color like mine throughout the world. Plastics contain petrochemicals and are derived from petroleum known as fossil gas. It was even found that petrochemicals are becoming the largest driver of global oil consumption, according to a 2018 consumer report made by the International Energy Agency. The increased dosage of plastics being produced yearly creates a further questioning of where those plastics will end up, which are often in landfills or oceans. Only around 9% of plastics are ever properly recycled, which again reinforces the fact that many of these industries are not properly monitoring the environmental impact. Most of the plastics are then burned, thrown to waste, and not properly designed to be disposable. And they contribute to 2% of global greenhouse gas emissions according to EcoWatch. With the demand decreasing for gas throughout the world, fossil fuel industries look for ways to stimulate the growth in order to further increase their GDP growth, which plastics is popular. Despite the experts having expressed concerns about the overproduction of plastics, many fossil fuel corporations continue to further expand their partnerships with chemical industries. And if you look back 20, 30, 40 years ago, you can see the amount of plastic has nearly doubled or tripled over the last few years. However, in recent years, many countries have been banning single-use plastic, and even countries that have been heavily exploited by colonialism have started to cut ties with countries within the United States and the UK. The oil and gas corporations are threatened by these types of actions and are already looking for ways and loopholes to continue being able to sell plastics in countries where it isn't even banned yet. So why environmental racism? I'll tell you why and how this relates to zero waste. Zero waste and environmental racism have always been interconnected. We cannot think that reducing our waste will make the corporations produce less while they continue to inject subsidies for plastics in the markets. Take for instance the Philippines, where the Global Alliance for Incinerator Initiative organization stated that inadequate waste management systems and human negligence are often cited as the main contributions to plastic waste leakage into terrestrial and marine environments. But waste and brand audit data in many parts of the world are helping reveal that unfettered production of disposable plastics is the actual problem. Another thing we should realize is that when looking at the number of plastics for each country, many countries that have been exploited by environmental colonialism like Asia have high amounts of plastic because they were delivered from countries like the United States and the United Kingdom. So when we're seeing these data, it's actually the production that the US and UK has caused. It was found in the United States that 79% of the 73 incinerators in the United States are located near low-income communities of color, and when plastics are burned, they release deadly chemicals such as mercury into the lungs of BIPOC. This also becomes an issue for reproductive justice. Zero waste and environmental racism are real, and it's no doubt that has created a global environmental injustice for people and their lands. Redesigning a system for waste management means dismantling colonial structures that uphold white supremacy by disproportionately murdering BIPOC communities. So if you truly care about communities of color like mine, then you must critically challenge yourself to extend yourself to that systemic change in dismantling white supremacy. Zero waste is a human's right issue, and without delving deeper into our waste systems and our own eco-friendly behaviors, we may fail to protect the future of the planet. And so we are no longer in a time to be really sitting down to talk about what's more eco-friendly. We need to push people to get into that mindset of you can be both eco-friendly and unlearn racism. So my essence in this video for zero waste is not to necessarily brag or hate on other people that are not talking about intersectionality, but to really bring light of the issues and that zero waste lifestyle movements have really created in media, similar to what we're seeing with veganism and zero waste are now marrying each other, is that there's really this focus on consumption of products and less conversation about justice and ethics. So if you're someone that practices zero waste or you're interested in sustainable lifestyles, share with me your experiences with zero waste, and I would love to learn more about your own journey and your thoughts about this. And if you want to learn more about the zero waste movement or other related videos talking about the history of plastics or environmental racism, please let me know, as I'm always looking to create more eco-educational videos. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe as this continues to support the work I do.